All right. So I kind of alluded to it. There was news yesterday that Chris Paul was waived, or now he's not waived. His future's in discussion right now with the Heat. So, Drew, what do you make of it? Do you think he can reconcile with the Suns? Do you think he's going to end up somewhere else? What do you make of this Chris Paul situation?
Sorry, I was just thinking of Winning Crashers when he's like, "How much gem you got, man?" That's all I can think of. Oh, Zion. Listen, I'm kind of surprised, to be honest, because with them signing Frank Vogel as the head coach, Chris Paul, one of the things that he's always done very consistently, even as he's gotten older, he's a really good defender. And Frank Vogel is a defensive head coach. And I kind of thought this was a better fit for Chris Paul than it was with Monty Williams. So I'm a little surprised. I understand it. I did think that this was a possibility. But then when I saw Frank Vogel, I was like, oh, hey, maybe. But listen, it makes sense. I mean, it sounds like they want to keep Kevin Durant, and it sounds like they want to obviously keep Devin Booker. So someone's got to go. And they just signed DeAndre Ayton
last summer.
It was last year. So the odd man out is Chris Paul, unfortunately. Here's the thing. I would love to see Chris Paul with the Lakers, just saying that right now, here and there. At the same time, I'm not sure how it would work with the Lakers because Chris Paul does need the ball majority of the time. He wants to facilitate. But him and AD would work wonders. Chris Paul would thrive with Anthony Davis, actually, I should say, would thrive under Chris Paul. So I think that would be a really good fit. It's LeBron actually kind of throws a wrench into that, if I'm not mistaken. But I think there is a way. Mm-hmm. Westbrook was a little different because Westbrook wanted the ball. He was ball dominant. Okay, I need the ball. And that was the only way he got going. Whereas Chris Paul, he's not a big-time shooter as it is. He can make his shots, of course, and I'm sure he would drive when he needs to. But he's okay with leaving that to LeBron. He's okay with feeding Anthony Davis. And I actually do think it worked out perfectly. And I was listening to my Bill Simmons podcast, and they were saying how it was a horrible fit. And I was like, I wouldn't say it's that horrible of a fit. I would actually say it would make more sense than the Westbrook one. And now, I don't know if they could afford Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul would probably have to take a pay cut if he was going to come to the Lakers. So that's something they would probably have to figure out. But all in all, I know everyone's going to say Chris Paul to the Lakers. I'm not sure the Lakers would actually go after him. I think they would think about it, but if you get Chris Paul, you're getting older rather than younger, and that's kind of been the issue. So, I think Chris Paul is worth it, to be honest, but, you might lose some depth, and that's my worry. And I know this is kind of an unpopular opinion, but I would actually rather keep D'Angelo Russell than to try and go after Chris Paul, just because of the fact of what I was saying. You're getting older, you're not getting younger. Whereas you keep D'Angelo Russell, he's still pretty young, and he's not going to be as expensive as Chris Paul. So,
well, a couple of weeks ago, we had talked about the Heat, what they should do because or not the Heat, excuse me, the Suns, what they should do because, they got eliminated pretty early off in the playoffs and, Monty Williams got fired. There's a lot of turmoil. So we kind of posed this question and I had brought up, and I want to brag a little bit because I brought this up before Colin Cowherd brought this up today on his show, where he said that he thinks that the Suns should trade for Marcus Smart with the Celtics and send Chris Paul, which is what I had said prior. So I just want to pat myself on the back a little bit because that's exactly what I said should happen because Chris Paul would help get the Boston Celtics more mature. And yes, you are getting a little older on that side of it, but he is a floor general. He will get them organized. It's not on Jason Tatum anymore to be, the guy. He could be the number one scoring option, but he doesn't have to be like the outright leader. It gives Jaylen Brown an opportunity to still do Jaylen Brown things, and you still have Chris Paul, who is basically a coach on the floor, which is phenomenal. Now, will that happen? I don't know, because I don't know if Boston Celtics want to get rid of Marcus Smart, because he is pretty pivotal in their defense. But, if the Suns give the right asking price, it'd be hard pressed not to entertain it. But, if the Suns do end up waiving Chris Paul, and I think then that means obviously he can sign anywhere he wants. As a Lakers fan, I'd love that. So the reason why I would like that is because I know we would get older on the point guard spot, but LeBron and Chris Paul are best friends. They've played together on Team USA during the Redeem Team. Chris Paul is a savant on the basketball court, and having a LeBron and Chris Paul combination, I think, would be great. I do think that Chris Paul coming in and being the third person on the big three for LeBron and AD. What I think it'll do is I think it'll actually make this team great because of the pick and roll action that Chris Paul and AD can do. I think it'll give LeBron James an opportunity to take longer rest time on the bench to conserve his minutes a little bit, because Chris Paul can help lead the team on the floor. But I would also say, too, is the reason why I wouldn't want to keep D'Angelo Russell from what his performance was in the playoffs is because he was so hot and cold, and just on the mere fact of we got to make roster changes to help the team in an elimination game, we were worried about telling him because it might hurt his feelings. I can't have a player on my team that's afraid to have his feelings hurt to make the right decision for a team. And I think Chris Paul would obviously want to win now, and he would hold some of these guys accountable. I think if the Lakers can get Chris Paul on a very friendly, deal, we can then re-sign Austin Reeves. We might be able to pick up Malik Beasley, or, keep some of the other players that were great role players for us. And I would also say the Lakers should keep Dennis Schroeder, which would help. He could be, a guy that has the heavier minutes if we want to preserve Chris Paul and make sure that he doesn't run himself injured. So I think it'll work on a couple of different fronts. I know that the Lakers would get older. There's that concern, but I think that this would be what the Lakers envisioned when they brought in Westbrook. Now, I'm not saying Chris Paul is athletic as Westbrook, but he would not be shooting no 8-footer and hitting the backboard or the backside of the backboard to then brick a shot. He would make the right decision, whether that's finding the open guy. He would maybe pull up, mid-range. He would do something. He'd be a far better point guard than what we had in Westbrook. And, I think it would work for the Lakers. Now, do I think it'll make them outright, favorites in the West or in the NBA? Probably not, because unless we get younger or AD could play all 82 games, averaging 27 and 13 every single night, being a defensive player of the year, I don't think the Lakers are going to be a championship team, but I think the Lakers' chances would help greatly if they can add a player like Chris Paul. I don't know. There's a lot of other teams out there that are fighting for Chris Paul's services that'll probably get him before the Lakers. But I think it's very interesting what's playing out right now this offseason.
I will push back a little bit on the D'Angelo Russell. You were talking about that you don't want a player who, is that sensitive to, like, if we have to bench him. I think there are two factors. First of all, he doesn't know D'Angelo Russell that well. Mm-hmm. And, I think he realized what he needed D'Angelo Russell. Whether he wanted to admit it or not, he needed D'Angelo Russell to score. So what is the surest way that you can show confidence in a player that you don't really know, that you haven't worked with for very long, and you're in a game where you kind of have to win? The best way is you just got to keep playing him. And I think that's what he ended up doing. He was like, hey, listen, I'm showing my belief in you. I know you can do this. So, just need you to step up. So that's kind of that would be my argument. Is I would say, I think Darvin Ham's hands were tied in that situation, because it was kind of like, we need him. And right now we don't really have any other options. and we have to keep him shooting because he's very important when he is making the shots. So I kind of back up Darvin Ham's decision on that. I understand what you're saying. Like, listen, if you can't handle it, then you need to go. But I don't think it was that. I think it was more Darvin Ham was like, listen, we got we don't have another option right now. We have to keep playing him, and we need his shooting right now. Whereas here in the offseason, they could potentially go, okay, where can we go? Can we get better in this position? Where would that be? Can we get younger? Or can we get more consistent shooting? All that jazz. So I'm sure they're going over that, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised, to be perfectly honest, if D'Angelo Russell was still a Laker come next year. To be perfectly honest.